Slick Rick is back, but Acho, what's the biggest disappointment for the Suns?
There are several. But you asked me the biggest. The biggest is Chris Paul. And it's not that Chris Paul played poorly. He did not. You would have to be a lunatic or a casual to think that Chris Paul played poorly. That's not the issue. Okay. The disappointment is, Chris Paul, you waited 16 years for this moment. The disappointment is, Chris Paul, we waited 16 years with you for this moment. The disappointment is, Chris Paul, you were up 2-0 in this series, and yet you didn't get the job done. Chris Paul's the biggest disappointment to me because, yes, he played better, but he allowed the other team's best player to improve at a greater proportion than he improved. Chris Paul, it wasn't about being better than your former self. It wasn't about having a better finals than a postseason and having a better postseason than a regular season. It was having a better finals than whoever the heck else was on the court with you. And you didn't. It was also about emptying the chamber. When you play in a high-level game, my coaches told me in the NFL or in college, just empty the clip. Figuratively speaking, leave everything you can on the court. Chris Paul, why'd you play 39 minutes? Why'd Jay Crowder play more minutes than you? Why'd Devin Booker play more minutes than you? Why'd Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Giannis play more minutes than you? There isn't another game. That's it. Season's over. Game's over. I was just as disappointed, if y'all recall, LeBron James against Devin Booker. Last game, Game 6, Lakers versus Suns. Devin Booker played 46 minutes. LeBron played 41. Booker dropped 47. LeBron dropped 29. That's it. The season's over. You got nothing left to save. Leave it all out there. Get carried off the court. Paul Pierce, wheelchair, no bathroom excuse. All of it. So I'm not disappointed because Chris Paul played bad. He didn't play bad. But when you wait 16 years for a moment and it may never come again, I have to see your best be better than anyone else's best, particularly if going into that game, you're the Hall of Famer. Going into that game, you're the top 5 player at your position, arguably. Going into that game, you're the best player historically, and you didn't come out of that game in the same way or in the same manner. For me, huge letdown.
I am not disappointed in anything about the Suns, because for me to be disappointed, I would have to have an expectation of something that ultimately did not happen. Am I disappointed that, or did I not expect Chris Paul at age 36 to wear down as the series went on once the attention was focused on him? That's not a surprise. Devin Booker playing emotionally and allowing that to cloud his judgment and therefore not playing smart basketball. Did that surprise me? No, it did not. DeAndre Ayton having great series up until now he's matched up against Giannis Antetokounmpo, a riddle that he could not find the answer for. Am I surprised by that? No, I am surprised that, or was surprised, that the Phoenix Suns actually made it to the NBA Finals. That was the big surprise. That's not what I expected. So they exceeded my expectations for a team that had not been to the playoffs in a decade, with a point guard at 36 years old who had never been able to stay healthy enough to get all the way to the finals. So there's nothing that happened with the Phoenix Suns in this finals or in this year that I look at and say, I'm disappointed in the. How can I be? I can't be disappointed in the Phoenix Suns for doing something that Chris Paul had never done before and the Phoenix Suns hadn't done since 1993.
Say it again. I'm echoing what you're saying, Slick Rick over there. I don't have a disappointment because they overachieved. Go back to December 22nd when you saw Chris Paul in the first game for the Phoenix Suns, a non-playoff team. Were you thinking it was going to end like this? Did you think it was going to end in the finals in the Game 6? No, not at all. So we will not penalize this team for the other team living out a fairy tale, living out their dreams and winning, and Milwaukee finally getting their championship. Both things can be true. Milwaukee, you went out there and won a championship. And, hey, Phoenix, you guys overachieved. Good building block towards your future. I need to see my boy Acho, because imagine you and I got this proposition, let's say 5 years ago or something. Hey, you get to race Usain Bolt in one of those celebrity matchups. What? And I'm like, yes, I'll race Usain Bolt. I ain't scared. I know I'm going to lose. But guess what? Even in a loss, what if I PR? Even in a loss, what if I do my best? Then what you gonna sit there after the race? Man, you lost to Usain Bolt. Man, you sorry. I'm disappointed in you. You gonna say, nah, bro, you did your thing, even though you got smoked. So that's what happens, DK Metcalf. So the point is, I'm looking at this situation the same way. We're looking at the Suns, who won 51 games this year. That's almost as much as they've won in the 2 seasons prior. Combined 54 wins. Acho, you just gave some credit to Giannis and the Bucks because their first game, they only won 15 games. First year, they won 15 games. And then this year in the playoffs alone, they win 16. Well, make it make sense. Give Phoenix the same kind of respect you gave the climb and the road and the journey for the Milwaukee Bucks. A team that missed the playoffs 10 straight seasons before this year, the Phoenix Suns, and now you're going to sit there high on a horse and be disappointed? Not me. I expected this.
All of what you all are saying makes sense and sounds good without context.
Okay.
But within the context, doesn't sound nearly as good. First things first is, Sal, there's a huge discrepancy, I would assume, between your speed and Usain Bolt's speed. So even if you run a personal best and he still beats you, no, I will not be disappointed because you were not supposed to win. Remember, the Phoenix Suns were the favorites going into this matchup. The favorites lost. The favorites also were up 2-0. So that's where I would draw a disconnect. Slick Rick, I would also propose that, of course, I wouldn't anticipate the Suns being in the finals. But, Slick, had I told you Anthony Davis would get hurt in the first round, Kawhi Leonard would tear his ACL, Jamal Murray would not be present, you would probably say, you know what? I could see the Suns coming out the West. Context matters. So after hearing all of those things or witnessing all of those things, then it's not a surprise. The Suns didn't overachieve. The Suns achieved accurately. AD was hurt. Kawhi was hurt. With all those players being gone, the Suns should show up there. But why I'm disappointed is it was theirs for the taking, Slick. You up 2-0. You're up 2-0. Y'all had to win 2 games before the Bucks could win 4. That was it. That was the proposition. By game 3, Suns, you need to win 2. They need to win 4. That's it. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. The other thing is, and I'm saving this for later, but I got to give it to you now, Slick. I think you'll enjoy this one, Sel. You as well.
Let's go.
Michael Jordan is 5th all-time in NBA history in scoring. Chris Paul is 5th all-time in NBA history in assists. That means that Chris Paul is as good at assisting, passing the basketball, as Jordan was scoring the basketball. The last time Jordan was in an NBA Finals, Game 6, 98, he had 45 points, the 3rd most all-time in a closeout game of the finals. So what Jordan did best, he did at his best and the 3rd best in history in the most pivotal moment. Chris Paul, you are as good as Jordan passing the ball. So in your most pivotal moment, your closeout game of your NBA Finals, I need to see something that is equivalent to the 3rd most of all time in that category. And yet you didn't have the most assists on your team. Drew Holiday also had more assists than you on another team. Chris Middleton had more assists than you on the other team. You didn't have the most assists on the court. So I'm disappointed because, no, Chris Paul, I didn't need you to score 55. Didn't need you to score 60. But what do you do well? What do you do better than just about anybody else in the history of the NBA? You pass the ball. So at a minimum, you could have at least done that greater than everybody else. And you didn't even do that greater. So, yes, Slick, that's why your boy's disappointed.
Yeah, I love you, Acho, because your arguments are just... sometimes they're just entertaining in and of themselves. The idea that being the 5th best in assists or having the 5th most assists now means you're equal to the guy who's 5th in scoring.
In your category. In your category, Slick. For example, if Giannis was the 5th all-time in boards, then I would expect him to lead both teams in rebounds. If Chris Paul's the 5th all-time in assists, I would hope he would lead both teams in assists. That's just kind of as Jordan was 5th all-time in scoring, and he led just about every playoff series in scoring. 37 out of 38 series, he led in scoring of all time. I would just hope that you would do those things.
But there are so many ancillary factors when it comes to I'm going to be the scorer. That's completely within my hands. If I am an assist maker, that's a two-man operation. I'm relying on other people ultimately to make shots as well, and those matchups to work in my favor. And so I look at this in totality. And you're right. In terms of the path that the Phoenix Suns had in order to get there, did things change as a result of players being missed? Yes, there was the opening there for them. And so them getting there wasn't the surprise that maybe we thought at the very beginning of the playoffs. But all that said, I can't be responsible for the odds makers or how other people viewed this series. I said at the very beginning, if Giannis plays, I see the Bucks winning because I thought that they were the better team. I thought that the matchups favored them in spite of what anybody else said, in spite of whatever Chris Paul did in Game 6 against the Clippers or even Game 1 against the Bucks. When I think about disappointment, I think about the Clippers. I think about the Brooklyn Nets not staying healthy. I think about the Miami Heat, the defending Eastern Conference champions, getting swept in the first round. Those to me are disappointments because I look at them and I think you guys should have been better than you actually were. Nikola Jokic as reigning MVP. I expected a little bit more. I just look at the Phoenix Suns. When I take a step back and I look at what they accomplished, I can't be disappointed because ultimately Chris Paul and the Phoenix Suns did more than I expected.
Here's where it starts and stops for me, Slick. If you don't even do what you do well, then I'm disappointed in you. And ultimately in the closeout game, Chris Paul had the fewest assists he's had all playoffs last night. If you don't even do what you do well, Slick, in the game of football, quarterback needs offensive line to protect for him, and he needs receivers to catch for him. But if you're the all-time leader in passing and you're playing in a Super Bowl, I'd hope you pass for a lot of yards.
Okay,
I would hope to see Tom Brady pass for a lot of yards. He needs a lot of help, but I would hope to see him pass for a lot of yards. You know the colloquial, it may be jovial, it may not be. You know what they say on the court, passer makes shooter. I'm not going to blame the Suns' lack of scoring on Chris Paul, but I'm saying, Slick, if you don't even do what you do well, in the biggest game, I have to be disappointed. I have to.
Does Chris Paul have control over DeAndre Ayton getting into foul trouble? Does Chris Paul have control over DeAndre Ayton clearly being disappointed in himself and not playing with the same energy? We could go and break down how many assists, how vital DeAndre Ayton in the two-man game was to Chris Paul's assist totals, and figure out how much of an influence that had. There were certain things that happened in this series and in these matchups that are beyond Chris Paul's control, including the fact that he was 36 years old and had to carry a weight that I dare say even Michael Jordan as a scorer didn't have to carry because he had Scottie Pippen next to him and Dennis Rodman next to him, and a system that worked a little bit better than what we saw the Phoenix Suns. Had a proven championship team around him ultimately. So I can't, the Chris Paul, Michael Jordan comparison to say that Chris Paul was a disappointment and somehow should have given me more. I saw 4 games, arguably 5 games, in which the Bucks demonstrated that they could make this series and the game different for Chris Paul. So the idea that he ultimately didn't figure that out in this situation, I can't be disappointed in it because it's what I anticipated once they took Drew Holiday, a first-team all-defensive player, and put him on Chris Paul.
Say it again, Slick Rick. I think Mark Jackson said it as well last night. So it's going to take a second for the Phoenix Suns to feel this, but down the road, they'll realize that this was a great season, and they did overachieve. So it's time to turn that frown upside down if you're a Phoenix Suns fan. You got to judge a man by the road traveled. Acho, you keep forgetting that one. And look at the road that the Phoenix Suns traveled from a non-playoff team to where they were in Game 6 in the finals in less than 1 year. Respect that. Also respect that Chris Paul went out there and gave you more than Chris Paul normally gives you. I remind you, before the finals and all the other rounds, compared to the finals, he played 5 more minutes per game. You said, why weren't you out there and your tongue on the ground? Well, he kind of did that. 5 more minutes per game. 3 more points per game. Let's talk about his field goal percentage. Went up 8% in the finals. His 3-point percentage went up 11%. And then you're going to try and nail him and say, well, if Jordan top 5, you top 5, why aren't you doing the same? And I'm glad Slick just combated that, Ivy League, respect. Because scoring is an independent stat. I'm going to get mine. And assist is a dependent stat. I need you to help me get mine. But Acho, I know you're not into the music I'm into. I need to see your face right now. Because this song came on like 4 days ago. I like lifting weights to old school classics, you know what I mean, slow songs. Like, you know, driving the Cutlass with your son and just take him around the neighborhood songs. And this song came up because it talks about timing. And in this situation, look at the timing when you're talking about the Phoenix Suns. You are my starship. Take me on a ride. He said this right here. He said, and don't be late, and don't you come too soon. I think it came too soon versus a team that was already ready-made. We'll see next year what Phoenix does. Big